Hello, my name is Emmy DeGrappa. Each week, we bring you stories asking our guests the question why. We learn about passion, purpose, and the human experience. Brought to you by Wyoming Humanities with the generous support of the Wyoming Community Foundation. This is What's Your Why? Today, we are talking to Katy Fox, and she is one of 5 artists that were chosen for an exhibition that features unrepresented and emerging women artists in Wyoming. And this is part of the National Museum of Women in the Arts and their exhibition called Women to Watch 2024 New Worlds. When women artists envision a different world, how does that look? So the National Museum of Women in the Arts invites us to explore this question with these 5 artists. So welcome, Katy.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Thank you for joining me. And I have 3 descriptions for you. And so I kind of want you to hone in and talk about each one of these. I have you as Katy Fox, the painter, Katy Fox, the print artist, and Katy Fox, the ceramics artist.
Definitely. I have a couple hats that I wear, and I think it keeps me intrigued in my art practice, and it helps. I feel like I'm spilling out sometimes with how much energy I have. And so I think that all of my different hats inform what I'm doing. And so as an artist, I go by Katy Ann Fox. Primarily, I'm an oil painter. I make pottery to keep myself centered. And I opened an art gallery to spread the words of the talented friends I have and also have beautiful walls for my own art to hang. And so I have an art gallery called Fine Art. I paint and I make pots. I also make prints.
Wow. Wow, you're doing it all. So where did you grow up, Katy?
I grew up in Grangeville, Idaho. So it's like just the base of the panhandle in the state of Idaho.
Okay. And what was your inspiration to become an artist and start working as an artist?
I was just talking to one of my friends, and I look at the world and I'm always looking at things and I can fix them. Like I'm really spatially aware, but like her screen door was closing on her and I was like, we can fix this. And so I've always been like tinkering and playing with the world and observing the world and like wondering how it can be better and how it's interpreted and how we interact with it. And I'm realizing how much that's informed my creativity and my processes, and also just kept me interested in being an artist.
And where did you go to school?
I went to University of Idaho and I got a business major with an art minor. And then I looked around the world and I sat at a dinner table with my parents and I was like, I got to go and I want to do art. And they totally supported me. And I was able to go to the Academy of Art University in San Francisco for my MFA. And so I studied for 3 years and I tacked on a summer. Because when you have that wonderful setup of, I think I kind of knew, but I didn't quite understand what a blessing it is to not have anything else going on in your life and to totally get to delve into your art practice. And so those 3 years were totally developmental and amazing. And then I looked to the world and I needed a stronger connection with nature on the daily basis, but I also craved and understood how special the San Francisco art community was. And so I looked around and I checked out a bunch of Western towns and I found Jackson Hole. It made sense to me and it keeps on making sense to me. And the community that I've developed there has continued to inform my art practice and the things that I want to paint. And I have wonderful, inspiring conversations with people. And I feel so lucky to be part of that community.
That is really, truly inspirational to me that you went out there and kind of saw your vision. You saw your dream and you just went for it.
Definitely. And I got to spend summers outside in Nevada, the state of Nevada. So like these wide open spaces and the most amazing sunsets and beautiful purple mountains, and understand like how important the open spaces were to me and how important Mother Nature and like the weathering of human existence happens. And then I felt like I found a little blend of my Idaho heritage with the Nevada open spaces in Wyoming. And it was kind of just the perfect blend.
So who has inspired your artwork and given you inspiration in the kinds of art that you are doing?
I've been so lucky to be surrounded with just supportive people. Like my parents have been incredibly supportive. My art teacher in high school was the same as the art teacher I had in elementary school. And I remember just losing my cool over how well this girl who was a senior when I was a freshman in high school could draw. And Miss Neville just looked at me and she said, "You can draw that well." And I had no clue, but I loved it. And I just knew that I loved it. And I knew that I loved what others were doing as well. And so I've had like encouragement from the very beginning, but then I feel really lucky that I got to go and study in San Francisco, and our studies were really rooted in the masters. But Jackson has like Edgar Payne hanging in the galleries there. Every year at the art auction, like you can go and see an original Edgar Payne, and he's my favorite. I have never seen a painter that has inspired me and spoken to the souls of the mountains and to my own soul so much. But then like my first painting teacher at University of Idaho is showing in my gallery in Driggs. And he's one of my best friends. And so it's like my whole path, I've just collected these positive influences and been so grateful. When I moved to Jackson Hole, I just needed a place to paint. And I knew that I couldn't sleep next to oil paints because I care about my health. And so I walked into the art association and there was some twinkle in my eye or something. And like Tom Woodhouse just took me under his wing and said, "Oh, Katy Fox, there's a spot for you to paint," and just pointed to the corner in the art association painting studio. And that was how I made all of my friends. And then I got into the art lab to get subsidized studio space for a local artist. And so I applied and was accepted into that. And then because of that studio space, I looked around, and the wallpaper show is their biggest fundraiser. And I really loved how the printmaking medium was bringing people together, but I didn't know anything about it. Like I had gone to oil painting school. And so I went and I looked at what they were using to make the prints, and I got online and I ordered all of the supplies. And then I just kind of stood there in the common area until someone, it was Scotty Craighead, just like took me under his wing and was like, "This is how you do it." And Travis Walker was like, "Oh yeah, Fox, you're doing a good job." Yeah. And so it's just been along the way. I've been so lucky to just have continued inspiring and encouraging conversations. And I hope that I'm providing that for others too.
Oh my gosh, you're so enthusiastic about what you do. It's really, I think it is contagious. I
hope so, because I feel so lucky.
That's incredible. And just that you have stayed on that path. And, a lot of artists, that's why they say they're starving artists, have a hard time staying on the path, and they get off their path in their dream because they get discouraged, I think, because it is hard to make a living. But you've actually managed to put that all together. And now,
oh my gosh, but I've had every side job you can think of.
Okay.
And they've all been wonderful. Like I got to work at Aspen's Market, and then they were like, "Oh, but is your handwriting okay?" And so I got to do like all of their sandwich boards. And so all of these funny little gigs I've had along the way have been bridge jobs, is what somebody called them. Like they've just been bridges onto my path, I feel like, because it's what made sense.
So the other thing that this exhibition is focused on is that we have these extraordinary events that happened in 2020, the global health pandemic, the intense calls for social reform, unprecedented social division, and just wanting to know from women how through their art, they're conveying those messages or working through those issues.
Yeah, art is the way that the artist gets to process the world around them through the art. And then anybody who looks at it and any way that it shares, it provokes more conversation. It's a communication tool that is deeper and different than any spoken word or written word. And so, yeah, the pandemic and the social reform and the fact that women were hit harder by the pandemic because they were pulled from the workforce to take care of children. And it was like, we had so many step backs in history, it felt like. And so to be part of this exhibit that's labeled A New World, to look in the direction that we want to, is the way that I like to focus my art. I think that you can look into the darkness and it's never ending, or you can look into the light and it's also never ending. And so remembering to look up and focus on the things that make us work and hope. Is that an answer to that question at all?
I really like how you answered that question, because you can look at life in two ways. You can look into the darkness, like you said, and that's unending. and you can look into the light. And that's also an ending. So you always remember to look up. And what a great metaphor to think about when you think about how you choose and make decisions and how you look at life. And it's kind of like that saying, are you a glass half full or a glass half empty?
Mm-hmm.
And so you just define that in how your answer to the pandemic. Like, I agree. I think women did get hit really hard.
Yeah. And we're also emotional, and like, I'm also like emotional and empathetic. And I just remember going into that, and I had a few conversations with my friends who I respected so much, my brother and one of my dear friends who's over 60. And I spoke with them and I was like, I guess I'll see you in like 3 weeks. I think we have to hide from each other for a second. And I just like felt this weight. And I don't know that everyone felt that, but I know that a lot of my female friends felt that.
I do think that everyone did feel it in some way or another. And even if it's just with your family relations, people you see every day, or the fact that people felt different ways about masking or not masking, or vaccine or no vaccination, and these kind of polarizing things that could pull you apart if you didn't say believe in getting a vaccination. So I think there were some very interesting things that were going on that were also polarizing. Even outside of just what's happening in.
Oh my gosh, it was wide. It made a huge path through our lives. Did you happen to catch the CBS Sunday morning special about division in America? And then they highlighted the wealth in Jackson, which was one of the specials. But then they also showcased this guy who was over 100, and he's the guy who wrote like Maude and a bunch of the sitcoms for when sitcoms became popular. And they were like, do you have any other ideas? And he said, yes, we can get through this, but we need the leadership of like a 13-year-old girl. And so his whole idea was like to make a sitcom with a 13-year-old girl that like got it, that brought her parents together, that questioned things and called people out and found humor and stuff and was just sharp. And I thought that was really interesting. But then I also last summer, I got to chaperone an all-girls camp up at Teton Valley Ranch Camp with GAP, Girls Actively Participating. It's a program that's in Jackson. And I don't think that I had ever, like, that was the most inspiring and wonderful week that I spent all last summer. The girls and the youth in America do have hope, and they see the faults of the world around them, and they're hearing it. And I believe in them. We have a really cool generation. We have really cool people pushing forward.
What kind of things would they say about where we are right now, and how they look at the world, and how they see what is dark or what is light about it?
It was a group of people who had girls that had grown up in Jackson. And so they were all totally understanding and like more well-versed than on climate change and all of the things that we could be doing. And they just believed in it. And there wasn't bickering. Like, they got along so well, and they were really supportive. And part of that was the organization and like the temperature of the attitude of the organization. But it was just so inspiring to know that there were all of these young women that were getting along so well and just looking brightly into the future. So that was a wonderful way to do the last week in August last year.
Oh yeah, I bet that was inspirational.
Yeah, it gave me new inspiration, new hope. Yeah. And I was just like some strange adult that seemed like kind of unattached and free to these girls. And they were like, I don't know, like, it was obvious that I wasn't a parent. Like, it was like, I didn't really make sense. And I wasn't one of the necessary categories that had always been filled in their lives. It was such a treat to attend that camp.
I actually think that's really fun. That must have been a lot of fun for you.
It was, yeah.
So my last question is just to ask you to just kind of paint a picture, like you were doing the next painting, of how you see yourself in the future, how you see yourself growing and expanding your horizons as an artist.
I'm sitting in the house that my mom grew up in right now. And I do think that there's so many things that we can gather from the past. And a lot of my artwork is painting these weathered buildings, or like painting the electrical boxes and the things that hold us together, and the behind the scenes things that are often overlooked. I want to go forward and remember the history and remember the major monuments that happened already, but understand that we can take this further and continue to get better. And it's not all darkness in our past. Like we get to bring positive things into our future, and we need to focus on the positive and focus on the things that bring us together. The telephone poles, I just got to do a solo show at my gallery, and probably the most popular painting that I did was a 3 foot by 3 foot of like a pretty normal little sunset. And then there was a telephone pole and a bunch of wires that made it all of a sudden kind of abstract. And it was just the connection in our lives. And I called it 1,000 metaphors, I can't say that. I called it 1,000 metaphors. And, it was funny how that painting stopped people. And so I think that I want to keep on trying to connect people and giving a sense of peace in my artwork, where people want to spend time together and with that peace and the positive, quiet moments of their life.
Well, how do people connect with you? How do they find you? What's the name of your gallery and what is your website?
My gallery is called Foxtrot Fine Art in Driggs, Idaho, and it's on the road up to Targhee. So it's just like on your way to Alta, Wyoming. And it's easy to find. I'm open every day of the week, closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, open in the afternoons. My website is katyannfox.com and the gallery website is foxtrotfineart.com. Both of them really easy. And you can always follow me on Instagram with Katy Ann Fox or Foxtrot Fine Art.
Okay, perfect. And it's been such a pleasure talking to you.
So wonderful to speak with you too.
Yeah. And so I can't wait to visit your gallery, actually.
Oh my gosh, come. Yeah, I have a bunch of fun events coming this fall. I'm going to do like the wet plate photography, like what Lindsay Ross, the alchemistress, does. And so there's a gal that lives in Alpine, Wyoming, who knows that process as well. And so I think we're going to do portraits on November 4th and 5th. And then there's a storytelling event. Valley Voices is going to be hosted at the gallery on November 10th. And then I'm going to install like food-oriented still lifes and food for November. And then nocturnes, so nighttime paintings for December. And then a whole new set of ideas for the new year. So I'm really excited.
So has that been a big challenge for you to stay focused on your artwork, but then at the same time run a business?
It's been more balancing. Like there's 1,000 problems to solve every day, which is really like invigorating to my personality. And then it's also the back. I'm able to paint in the back. And so it's the nicest, cleanest, warmest studio I've ever had to make art. And so it really feels like I have all of the walls and the space to be a true like professional artist, how I glorified it when I was in art school. And how I'm sitting in the back of this gallery that this space demands respect. Like it's beautiful. There's tall walls. It's all white. It's clean. And then I'm sitting in the back, like painting whatever I want and getting to be face to face with people who are excited about art, whether it's my art or my friend's art. And it's really, truly the best. It's really feeding my soul. It's totally challenging, but I love it.
I love it too. I love that you're so excited about it. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Emmy.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of What's Your Why? Brought to you by Wyoming Humanities with support from Wyoming Community Foundation and generous supporters like you. To learn more, go to thinkwhy.org, subscribe, and never miss a show.